at least first couple of hours of the show, there's a very slight chance that we may get the part that we've sent to town to get fixed back here this evening, reinstalled in the vehicle, and then James will hopefully head out towards the end of the safari. It's a hot but thankfully quite a windy afternoon in Sun Heights, and I'm guessing that a lot of the animals are going to be on the go slow for the time being. But my plan is to take you all directly to the remains of a buffalo carcass that the Birmingham Coalition abandoned yesterday morning. And strange behavior from lions to do that, but they are on a rampage trying to acquire this territory as their own, and I'm guessing that's the main contributing factor to kill. Some hyena fed on it last night, and sadly we didn't get to show you any of that action either last night or this morning, but maybe there'll be some vultures in the area continuing to pick on that carcass, or maybe a leopard or some lion have managed to find it, some other lion. There's still a fair amount of meat on the carcass, but the hyenas did do a good job getting rid of most of the extra meat so that it doesn't go to waste. Now, for those of you who are joining for the first time, welcome. And just to let you know a few very important things, this is a live safari, so it's not planned and scripted, and what you see is what you get, and it's what's happening this very second in Africa. And if you'd like questions or thoughts, please do so, and you can do that by hashtagging Safari Live on Twitter, or sending an email through to questions@wildearth.tv. And that way I can get an idea of what you guys are thinking, what you'd like to know, and we can fine-tune the safari specifically catering for your needs. There are a lot of you on board, so we can't answer everybody's questions. That would be close to impossible, but we try and answer as many as we can, and really do love interacting with all of you. Well, the elephants have been doing a little bit of exterior decorating. You'll notice this little green bush hanging into the road here. So now what I need to do is the machete out, which I will then, or what we also call a panga, and just clear it out the road so that it doesn't get in anybody's way. Victory! And it's one animal I really don't mind cleaning up after, the old elephants. For those of you who were watching the show yesterday afternoon, you would have seen me make a toothbrush out of that same tree called the Magic Quarry. And I'm guessing the elephant that broke it was doing it simply to show its size and strength. They very rarely will feed on that tree, and that's why it's one of the only trees you see remaining here with green leaves. They've got very tannic acids in them. And only at the most harsh times of the year, like now, will elephants feed on them. And even then, it's just the odd little mouthful. Hello Sharon in Pittsburgh, and it's good to have you with us. Sharon was watching the sunrise safari earlier today, and she'd like to know a little bit more about the backpack that I was wearing, and she noticed that it had various parts, electrical parts on it, which help get the broadcast around the world. And she mentioned that it must be quite heavy and hot, and it is fairly hot and heavy, and it will be a lot hotter and heavier as the summer months come closer. Obviously the backpack's not going to change, but the weather certainly will. But it's worth sweating, and it's worth toiling through the troubles of being able to get that broadcast to you from walking safari. There's lots of fine tuning that still needs to be done, but we're getting there slowly, and what an awesome addition it will be to the Safari Live experience. It's only about 12 kilograms, 25 pounds in weight, so not too heavy, and it's an old military backpack. It's got a metal frame, and we've put a little wooden screwed on the different encoders and decoders and strange bits and pieces of which my knowledge of are very slim, but thankfully we've got a team of technical wizards that are the people that should get the majority of the, or basically all of the credit for getting this broadcast out to you, because if it was just James Brent you, and it always blows my mind how the tech team managed to work their way out through all the problems and gremlins that they come across almost on a daily basis in order to make sure the show does go on. Just a couple of minutes away from the buffalo kill, and I really do hope that there's some vultures feeding there. I've only actually managed to share with you one vulture feeding frenzy, and interestingly enough it was as a direct result again of the Birmingham males, but this was early in November last year, or no, maybe December last year, when they had killed one buffalo just south of our boundary on Juma, but close enough to the road for us to view, and they had again abandoned that kill to kill another buffalo not far away that they were feeding on. And while they were busy feeding on that other buffalo, I went back to their old carcass and saw about 40 or 50 vultures descend down onto the kill. And the great thing about that sighting was that we were there to watch the first vulture drop to the ground, and then the rest flurry in afterwards. But that was the first and last time I managed to show you vultures in action. Sadly, it doesn't look like much has changed from this morning. There are hundreds, possibly thousands of flies on the carcass, and you can see a big white mass on the nostrils. Those are maggots. And there's just a writhing mass of them there. I'm guessing some hyena will probably come back this evening and continue to try feed on the scraps. But looking around, it appears that the vultures have abandoned the thought of waiting for any more snacks from this, and have probably come in during the course of the day to get whatever little bits and pieces they can. But who knows, we may end up here a little bit later. But I certainly don't think it's worth hanging around now, as there doesn't appear to be too much going on. But good that we did get to check it out. And you never know what is going to happen out here on safari, and that's why I love being here, because you often get surprised and your thoughts and ideas as to what may be happening are often proved wrong by the animals. But because it is a hot afternoon, what I would like to do is head straight up towards the Buffelshoek waterhole, which is one of our most productive waterholes, and I haven't been there for quite some time, so I'd like to just go in and check in on that area and possibly head to another waterhole thereafter, just waiting for it to cool down. The Inkahuma Pride are probably somewhere on the property. We didn't manage to find them this morning, but they could pop out sometime a little bit later on this evening, so that's another good prospect. And there was also tracks of a very large male leopard that came from our northern boundary, the Buffelshoek cut line, all the way south, past the lodge, past the final control room, and that's where James found the tracks and continued tracking it down towards the Mawati and the central parts of Djuma. And it'll be wonderful to see a big male leopard again. It's been quite some time. I think the last time we saw a male was when we saw shadow mating, a big male that is, and that would have been probably 10 or 11 days ago. If I could choose, I would choose to see Mvula. I can't remember when last we saw him, but any leopard will do, and any animals will do. You can't be fussy out here, and you just take what you can get, really. Topic of leopards, it's a good opportunity for us to chat with Jeff in Manchester, England, and he's asked whether leopards are entirely opportunistic hunters, or will they sometimes only make kills when it's close enough to a tree that they can hoist it in. It's a good question, Jeff, because in an area, or in many areas in Africa, if leopards don't hoist their kills, hyenas or lion can very easily steal them. And I've never, though, in all my time, noticed or heard of any stories of a leopard that only makes kills close to trees, in the knowing that it would then be able to take it up there and it'd be safe and not stolen. And in certain parts of Africa, there are not nearly as many trees as here, so what you'll find is what leopards have adapted and evolved to do is to rather be able to drag their kills quite some distance. And bear in mind, if a leopard is strong enough to take a kill up into a tree, it's considerably easier to drag the thing along the ground, even if it's 100 or 200 meters. So that's what I have seen, and I've actually been very surprised on several accounts of how far I've had to follow a drag mark to find a leopard with the kill. So there are some tracks on the road here, and it looks like some small brown chocolates. Sadly, they are not chocolates, but this is a great sequence because you get to see quite a big footprint. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to jump out quickly and give you an idea of how big the track actually is by using my hand. My hand is not big either, so don't be fooled. I've got a very small hand in comparison to others, but it's a big hoof, 2 individual pads, and I'd say that's about 6 inches long. And this is the footprint of a giraffe. He was heading in that direction, and I'm going to pick up some of his dung, because what's interesting is that you can actually differentiate between the dung of a male and that of a female giraffe. They're very slightly different, I'm told. And they're very dry as well. So although it's quite fresh, I mean, it was deposited here earlier on today, the weather has already dried it out, and it's very well digested. Even though it would have been feeding on leaves mainly, you can not see the shape of any leaf, and that's all very fine matter and already quite dry. And what I'm told is that these small little nipples that you see are indicative of a male giraffe, and the females lack these small little nipples on the edge of their droppings. So some interesting stories about the droppings. Now, I'm not going to do this, but there is a game that can be played called spoegdrol, and spoegdrol means to spit the drolletjie, which is like anything small, I guess, in Afrikaans or Dutch. And what you would do is put the drolletjie into your mouth and then shoot it out as far as you can. And that's something that people often do to entertain themselves when on safari. It's kind of like shot put, I guess, but instead of throwing a heavy ball, you place a little ball of dung in your mouth and spit it as far as you can. Too many giraffe around at the moment, and it's interesting how the numbers of animals varies from time through the various times of the year. But I have noticed that for certain there aren't nearly as many giraffe as the summer months, but it ebbs and flows. I'm sure a lot of you must wonder what the whole WildEarth Safari Live team gets up to in between drives, and I know Kenneth is interested to know that. He's just sent through that question, and it's a good one. There's almost always something broken that needs fixing, so that's almost a daily occurrence, and that keeps us busy. But now, especially as we go further into the summer months, Kenneth, our mornings are very early and our evenings are quite late, and we often have a very large chunk of time between the drives. So now the morning drive finishes at 9 and the afternoon drive starts at 3:30, so that gives us 6.5 hours during the day. We take off a half hour each side. We head out half an hour before every drive, so that gives us 5.5 hours. And we have breakfast, have a morning meeting, and then it's up to the individual's discretion as to what they do in the downtime between the meetings and the meals. And today James and myself did some exercise on the quarantine clearings. We went for a run. Some of the girls were tanning by the pool, and I had a little snooze. I think it's one of the perks of the safari industry, is that most days you get to have a siesta, and it's something that I quite enjoy doing. So I had a little 1 hour snooze, and before you know it, it's time to go back to work again. So we try and do a little bit of exercise here and there, sleep, edit photographs, check emails, my worst thing on earth, and then some downtime. So certainly not too stressful, but drives. days in a town trip. Told the audio is not coming through too clearly at the moment due to a bad signal area, and because you're stuck with me, there's nothing we can do about that. Copy that. Thanks. I don't understand why the signal in this area has all of a sudden gone bad. It was never a problem before. The strip was an issue. This whole strip used to be fine. Copy, thanks. Yeah, that's useful info, thanks. Apologies for that moment of jumpy screen and bad audio, but we have made it through the depression and shouldn't have any more trouble for the time being. Although when we do get to Buffelshoek Waterhole, there is one little section where we will probably lose signal again. But we will cross that bridge when we get there. Anyway, Kenneth, I think you got a good idea of what we get up to between the drives. Another thing that we sometimes do with the other guides is we go and play touch rugby out on some open clearings. And we're all quite an active bunch, which is great. Sometimes we also go tracking animals or go on game between the drives. And the winter months are really wonderful for doing that because the temperature allows for you to literally be out on safari all day, from sunrise till sunset. Whereas summer, the heat makes the safari experience best enjoyed early in the morning or very late in the evening. And that's why I personally, or a big reason why I do prefer winters, because you can go out all day. In summer, it gets incredibly uncomfortably hot and humid from about 8 a.m. in the morning. So before the sun's even risen, you're sweating here. And us humans aren't too different to the animals who don't enjoy that weather, and in that weather they will seek refuge and shade and not be too active, which from a viewing point of view and a filming point of view is not ideal, because you don't get to see as much action. And because it is so difficult to film effectively at night, and because we are still fine-tuning that, it makes it a bit complicated. Just seen some male leopard tracks. I'm not sure how fresh they are. They're just over my right shoulder here. There's one here. So I'll keep a close eye out as we continue down this road, but I fear that it does look like they have already been driven over. Doesn't mean that the leopard's too far away. They could be from last night. Quite a decent sized leopard that looks to be. Let me just creep along here slowly and try and gather a little bit more info. No, the tracks have been driven over, so they're not from between the game drives, but possibly from last night. And of what looks to be a decent sized male leopard. It wasn't too long ago that we saw Makomba, a young male who's 2 years old, and I don't think his footprints would have been that big, but we saw him here. And I'd be more inclined to think, judging by the area and the size of the footprint, that would be Mvula, who's the leopard I was speaking about earlier, who I'd really love to show you all again. He was the first big dominant male leopard I got to see here on Djuma. But times have changed, and Tingana has come along and ousted him and pushed him further to the north and to the west, so we're not going to be seeing as much of him as we used to, which is fine. There's certainly nothing wrong with Tingana, but obviously because he was the first leopard that I did see, I've got a little bit of affection that I showed towards him. It wasn't a great sighting though, because as I got there, my vehicle didn't have signal in the area where he decided to lie down, but Hayden's did, so I had to leave and Hayden came in and enjoyed. Oh, well, what a pleasant surprise we've got here. I'm just going to stop quickly, and Jeandré can try and capture this. I fear that as the hippo continues to move, we may miss the terrapin who's sitting on its back, plop off into the water. And you can see that little freshwater turtle essentially perched on the hippo's back. And as the hippo slowly moves into deeper water, I fear that we may have not been able to show you that. But the situation stabilized, and so has the terrapin's island. Great, what a bizarre combination of animals to see sitting with one another. You may have heard a soft call of the go-away bird. Quang! And when I stop here, we'll scan around and see if we can get you a visual of that go-away bird. Ah, perfect timing. Let's just come down to the water's edge to have a drink. We're a little bit far away, but you will get an idea of the kind of bird it is. That has that quite large crest on its head that's almost permanently erected. Oh, there it goes. And it was letting off its call there as it was probably a bit nervous. Oh, no ways, we've got even luckier. Look here, perfect timing. Woohoo! What I'm going to do though, Jeandré, before you zoom in, is I want to get us down to the water's edge, and that way we're going to have a great low angle. Oh, we've hit the jackpot. From a tiny grey go-away bird to a very, very large grey elephant. Looks like a couple of young bulls, so they may also entertain us after they've had a drink. There we go. Well, I couldn't believe my eyes. They were literally charging around the corner. Obviously very excited to quench their thirst. And they can suck incredibly large amounts of water up into their trunk each time they do that. 10 liters, no problem, and then spray it into their mouths, and they could very well consume in excess of 50 liters just in this one sitting. I'm sure in certain areas where water is less available to the elephants, they will consume even more than that each time they need to drink. But here in the Sabi Sands, the elephants are a little bit spoilt, and there are sufficient water points to keep them happy. Well, because it is hot today, what would be wonderful is if they decided to have a mud bath after their drink. And for those of you who were on the sunset safari yesterday afternoon, you will remember a very, very cute sighting of all different sized and shaped elephants playing in the mud. It got a little bit hairy at one stage when one of the cows turned on us and started displaying some aggressive behavior towards us, but thankfully she didn't follow through with anything. Tricky business, this live wildlife filming. As Jeandré was zoomed in on the elephant, the hippo decided to open its mouth and let off a very big yawn. So as Jeandré panned across to try and capture the end of the yawn, the hippo closed its mouth, pretending as if it had not been doing anything. So that is why Jeandré all of a sudden rushed across to the hippo that was apparently doing nothing. But this is actually a beautiful view. And we'll be sure to keep, well, I'll be sure to keep an eye on the hippo now to be able to alert Jeandré to its next yawn. I was also caught unawares. And the hippo wasn't necessarily yawning because it was tired. They do it as a dominance or size and power display. They've got massive, massive teeth that they like to show everyone. Well, we've got an interesting comment that's just come through from Mavis saying that she thinks this water looks clean. It certainly isn't, Mavis, and it's probably just an optical illusion from the angle we're sitting at, but it's murky, muddy, poop-infested water. And I wouldn't even have a teaspoon of this water. So, like I said, I think it could be some kind of an optical illusion. And if Jeandré just follows the edge of the water towards us a little bit, you'll see some elephant poop stewing in the pond. So it certainly isn't clean, and like I said, I think it's just some kind of illusion. Jeandré, the hippo, there we go, here we go, show us your teeth. Oh, look at that. Aren't you big and mean? Yes. Well done. Well done there, Jeandré. Now the good news is it looks like these young elephant bulls may come along the water's edge towards us and maybe show us some adolescent attitude. Now, as we arrived at this wonderful sighting at Buffelshoek Waterhole, there was a terrapin on the hippo's back, and we've just got another question through from Jeff in Manchester, England, asking if I've ever seen a heron, but not only perched on a hippo's back, but managed to catch a fish whilst perched on a hippo's back. And no, I certainly haven't seen the kill part of that scenario, Jeff, but I have on many accounts at this very waterhole seen a heron perched on the hippo's back. Hello boys, you can come closer. We are not going to open our mouths and yawn like the hippo did. We come in peace. Interesting, this looks to me like a female hippo. I don't think she's big enough to be a male. Quite a small head. There's too much going on. A wildlife cameraman's worst nightmare, too much action. And I wonder what's caught this elephant's attention. It seems like it's smelling some of the dung very intently. The wind is blowing from us towards this young elephant, so it could be smelling us or the banana that Jeandré has got stashed in the back of the car. But hard to tell, but you can see how it's using its trunk to really investigate that area where he's sitting. And aren't we lucky to be off to such a great start this afternoon? Okay. Maybe it was the banana he smelt, and now he's coming closer. Hello, boy. Now, it's important to know that as I say hello, boy, I'm not expecting him to respond, but I'm just trying to talk in a calm voice and thus hopefully have some kind of a calming effect on the animal. Whereas if I was to start screeching and screaming, it may alarm the elephants, and that's the last thing we would like. Great. Well, I think we might want to just spend a little bit more time with this female hippo. Maybe she will give us one more yawn. And I guess what may have happened here is that she, along with a lot of other hippo, are beginning to have to move very, very far and wide. And as they move further away from certain water sources, oh, have we got another yawn coming? Oh, what she might do is roll over. Please roll over. Yes. At least we got to see some of her toes there. Occasionally hippos do this. They roll completely right over. She didn't do it entirely there, and maybe she just wanted to get her back wet and the top of her head wet. Although, what is her next move? Come on, full roll. No. But you would have got a glimpse of her funny feet and the four toes that we often show you in the tracks on the ground. I think she was waiting for the elephants to leave before she did her performance now. Well, it looks like we found ourselves an actor here at Buffelshoek waterhole, and certainly the most life I've seen from a hippo here. So maybe it's not Princess Daisy, who was named by Grace, one of our viewers, a few months ago. And Princess Daisy and I've forgotten the male's name. Was it Bob the hippo? Yeah, it was Bob and Princess Daisy that were having a romance here, or at least those were our thoughts. And the fact that we are witnessing this different, almost playful behavior from this hippo means that maybe it's a different one. There's no guarantees. Maybe it's just in a good mood. To be honest, I could think of nothing better than wallowing around in the water. Now, not here. It would be a career-limiting move, as it would probably be the end of my days here on this planet. They are very, very aggressive animals, hippos, and kill more people in Africa than any other mammal every year. And there's contributing reasons for that. They occur outside of national parks where there's human-animal interaction, and that can lead to problems. And so many people in Africa still rely on natural water points like rivers and dams to get water for washing and cooking, that they do sometimes clash with the hippos, which have got very, very short tempers. And despite their large bodies, they can move incredibly quickly. Oh, one more big yawn. Get ready for the screenshots. And I have got a very small filing cabinet in this head of mine, so I've forgotten who sent through the question earlier saying that the water looks clean, but I'm sure in these more recent pics you would have noticed that it is certainly not clean, and that was Mavis. So I'm glad we've got to clear that up. And I know we just got a comment through from Danny saying, yuck, look at all the algae and green muddy water that is coming out through that hippo's mouth. Not Danny, Donna. Look at how perfectly the nostrils, eyes and ears line up, so that only that part of their body has to be out of the water and the rest can be submerged if they were like. And as the nostrils go into the water, those little vents actually close. But that's very difficult to see from this angle. And there's so many animals that we see out here in Africa with strange noses. Imagine if we could just open and close our noses without having to use our fingers. Or in the elephant's case that we've just seen drinking. Imagine if we had to slurp up whatever we wanted to drink into our nostrils and then blow it into our mouth. There's a very pretty bird just in front of us, and while the hippo seems to be drifting off into a little bit of a snooze, I'd like to take this opportunity to show you a tiny little critter here at the Buffelshoek waterhole. There you are. It's an incredibly pretty bird, and there are so many small and pretty animals out here that simply due to their size often go unnoticed. And this is the three-banded plover. And while we watch this little wader feed on a tiny little aquatic invertebrates, I can let Mauricia know how and why I think that this hippo is a female. I'm going simply on size, and even though, Mauricia, we can't see much of the body, the head is very small and quite narrow, and that is what led me to believe that it is in fact a female. I could be wrong, and maybe it's a young male. So it's just my speculation, but I'm going almost entirely on the size and shape of the head. Look at that bright red eye and red beak with this perfect afternoon sunlight. Wonderful. And, when the next animal is going to come down for a drink. But what we might do in the meantime is go for a drive around and check a little hidden cove. That's going to be nice and shady. It's got good afternoon shade. And see if there's nothing hiding around there. But just before we head there, I'd like to point out the peninsula where Makombo was seen or found the other day, just on this little point here. And imagine coming around the corner, arriving at Buffelshoek Waterhole, and seeing a leopard lying up on that peninsula. That was what Craig was fortunate enough to experience. And then where we're going to take you now is where Makombo went. He basically popped down, heading directly away from us towards that big green tree you can see in the distance. And I'm going to show you the shady spot where he went and lay down. There's no guarantee that he'll be there now, but maybe there'll be something else there enjoying the comfort of the shade. Sorry, hippo. We don't mean any trouble. Welcome back. Apologies, we lost you ever so briefly there. But you didn't miss anything, and thankfully, because the water level is quite low now, we could just skirt along the dam wall and not go through a much bigger dip that would have caused bigger problems for the signal. But that's going to change in the coming months, and it's something that we've been speaking about quite a lot. The first summer rains and the joys that it will bring along with it, and changes that it will bring along with it. Imagine if we find a leopard around this corner after just talking about it. Even though it's a slim chance, the chance is there. Not today, but right under this log. I mean, look at how comfortable it is there. Nice soft sand, cool shady spots. And that's exactly where young Makombo was lying. but nothing to see here this afternoon. So I think it's time we continue this adventure and head off into a different part of Djuma. Now, just to reiterate, it's just myself out this afternoon. The second vehicle is still not operating, and sadly the backpack is being used to do some other tests, so James hasn't been able to take the backpack out that he took out yesterday afternoon and that I took out this morning, that allows you to broadcast from being on foot or whilst being on foot. We've just got a question through asking, why is the three-banded plover, the little bird we were just looking at earlier, where are the three bands? And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get my book out quickly. I'm going to find a shady spot and try and work out exactly why. And that was Cecilia who sent through that question, so thank you, because I'm actually not too sure. And while I was sitting there, I thought to myself, where are the three bands that everyone speaks of all the time? And I couldn't see them. But what I think basically happens, Cecilia, is that it might be three white bands as opposed to three clear black bands, if that makes any sense. So the bands are the less prominent color. Yeah, it is bizarre. Well, I guess here we go. This is what will explain it. It's got two black bands and a white band in between. And as Jeandré zooms in, you'll see that those are the three bands. So you would have thought that it would be three bands of the same color, but it's black, white, black. 1, 2, 3, three-banded plover. I think we can question that, though, as it doesn't make perfect sense in my mind. It should have been called a two-banded plover, but that is in history. And interestingly enough, look at how long the name is for it in Afrikaans. Sorry, Jeandré. It's called a Driebandstrandkiewits, all one word. And there's some really interesting Afrikaans names for the birds out here. And here we go. And drie meaning three, band meaning banded, strandkiewit meaning beach something. I'm not sure exactly what a kiewit is. Maybe Afrikaans word for a plover, but a three-banded beach something. And not too far off a beach. I mean, it's a water bird. Beach something. And not too far off a beach. I mean, it's a water bird. When we saw the elephants drinking, I mentioned that there was a chance that they would take a mud bath afterwards, and they didn't. And now Mary in Michigan's inquiring as to why I think they didn't take their mud bath. Is it maybe something to do with the hippo? And maybe it has got something to do with the hippo, Mary, but I think it's more got to do with their mood. Elephants are much, much bigger than hippos and will therefore tolerate any bullying from them. So I think maybe it was just an error in my call and they simply weren't in the mood. Look at how beautiful the iridescent colors are on the starling. Incredible when the sunlight catches them from the correct angle. They're really beautiful colors. And off it goes, sitting in a small dead leadwood tree, which will probably remain here for hundreds and hundreds of years. And it's now on the ground, and this is where Burchell starlings do their feeding. They've got those long legs which help them to run after their prey. Look at those colors. And also look at how it changes when the sunlight isn't at the correct angle. It just goes a dark, dull blue. Just heard a report come through on the radio, so I'm just going to chat with Craig. Afternoon, Craig. It's just myself out this afternoon, solo mission. What you got there? Okay, copy. Confirm the glove there. Much. Okay, copy that. Thanks, Craig. Last updates on Mkonzo for the Nkuhumas. We think they're in the block between Aubrey's and Gallagher shortcuts. They headed in an easterly direction into the block off Wayatilla access about midway between Gallagher shortcuts and Aubrey's. Apologies to leave you all there, but it is important to communicate with the other guides, and because it is just me this afternoon, we can't wait for when we're not live to do so. And Craig had just found a rhino somewhere in this greater wilderness, and I'm not going to tell you where, and we're not going to go and see it because of the huge poaching crisis that rhino are up against at the moment. And he actually didn't mention what animal he had found, and that's what was confusing me. And I said, oh, is it in glove, meaning is it elephant? And he said no, and he didn't want to tell me what it was over the radio. And it's just a procedure and protocol that the guides will do. They will not call in rhino over the radio and disclose their information in the concern that the poachers may have tapped into our radio frequency and therefore know where to come and find these rhino. And that's the same very reason why we don't show you rhino, because we do not in any way want to aid or be involved in a rhino that is poached. I've got good news for Craig though. He asked earlier, please let me know if any mangwa are found. And a mangwa is a zebra, and we are surrounded by them. And not only mangwa, but also piva, the waterbuck. Craig, good news. There are some mangwa on Hippo Pools Road. Oh, in this windy weather, that may be what's exciting this herd a little bit. The female that Jeandré was filming running along there was heavily pregnant, and well, I guess maybe let me reiterate that, she was showing signs of pregnancy, and she will continue to even show more signs in the coming months, but will in all likelihood probably only give birth in around October, November. And they will do it at this specific time because that is when there is the most abundant food, and that will allow her to raise her foal more successfully than any herbivore that would give birth in the winter months when it's very, very dry and harsh. The tails are wagging furiously, and if I had one on the back of my head, I'd be doing the same thing. The flies are a real nuisance, and unlike the zebra, I cannot wag my tail or flick my ears from side to side, so I just have to embrace the flies. Just looking back to Jeandré to see how he's doing. He doesn't seem to have too many on him. It's probably because he's still so fresh and clean from the city that it's too much of a foreign body for the flies of the bushveld. But they'll take a liking to him soon, no doubt. And I often feel sorry for the cameramen, especially when they are really focused on any sequence. If a fly jumps onto their nose, they've got both hands on the camera and can't start wobbling their head from side to side, so just have to grin and bear it. Let's see if we can get you a little bit closer. Well, there is some breaking news, and it is good news. It is not a disaster, but hopefully the second vehicle will be back up and running shortly. And I'm sure a lot of you will not only enjoy chopping and changing between the two vehicles, but also enjoying James and the humor that comes along with his safaris. And not only humor, some great knowledge and experience in the industry. And it just doubles our chances of finding you guys good action. Although this afternoon Mother Nature has been looking after us, we've been very fortunate so far. And look at how beautiful this is. What I love doing is comparing zebra stripes. Now I'm hoping the one, there we go, look at how different the stripes on the two faces of the animals facing from right to left are. The one on the left has got a lot more dark black stripes, whereas the one on the right, so it's quite a pale face. Much of a muchness, but all slightly different. They are such bizarre animals. Imagine arriving in Africa for the first time, having had no idea of any of these bizarre animals, and then stumbling upon a zebra or an elephant or a giraffe. I mean, the list is quite a long one of bizarre animals that we have here, but this for me is one of the most unique. Considering the coloration of most of the prey species out here, how they ended up so different really is a mystery. But their camouflage does serve a very good purpose, and that is to disrupt and confuse their predators. And notice how much bigger the two zebra are on the right. Their head's above the small foal, who's got her head out of our view. But notice how their bellies are all exactly the same height. Now, if you're a predator looking in on this scene, you're going to battle to work out whose legs belong to who with all these stripes and patterns. It's going to be difficult for you as a predator to establish who's who and which is weak and which is young and what's going on. And that in itself is already an explanation as to how their camouflage works. And we don't have the best views of the other zebra, but I am going to ask Jeandré just to show you for interest sakes how they're sitting. It's really cool. They are all kind of standing head to toe, and it's not uncommon for zebra to assume this stance. And what a great way to literally have an eye on each other's back, and that way you can relax without too much concern of what may be approaching from the rear. And it's not only those two that Jeandré has just showed you now. They're in the clearest spot, but there's also another two which I would like to show to you just for interest's sake. They are behind some thick bush, but just to show you how they've all kind of teamed up together in their little pods, making sure that all is safe and sound. An interesting question that's just come through from Jessica, and one that I've never had before, but it's a good one, and she's interested to know, does the darkness of the stripes and the amount of dark comparative to light have any meaning or influence on dominance or testosterone, as it may sometimes have an effect with male lions who potentially, if they have bigger and darker manes, they could have more testosterone and hormones pumping through their body? And I don't think so, Jessica. I don't think it plays a role like that. And it's important also that we clear up that the color of a mane of a lion is not entirely dependent on testosterone and dominance, but also genetics. So depending on certain areas where you may view lion, it may simply be genetics that determine how dark the mane is or how light it is. So it's not always a go-to and sure indicator of dominance or testosterone, but it certainly can in some instances help you to work out who's the boss. Okay, well, Jeandré is just wanting to pan you all the way across to the Piva, the waterbuck. And thanks, Jeandré, I'd actually forgotten about them, to be completely honest. They're a little bit behind us. And actually quite nice to see the rear view of the waterbuck, because you can see that very distinctive white ring. And legend has it that the waterbuck sat on a wet toilet seat many thousands of years ago, and that is why they have this white ring on their bottom. Other people say it's a target for lions, but regardless of what you think and why you think that white ring is there, it is a great diagnostic feature of the waterbuck, and no other antelope has anything quite like it. Now, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, a lot of these zebra are showing signs of pregnancy, and as we take a closer look at the individual that's closest to us, I haven't really pointed out, you'll see the belly is quite swollen, but will continue to grow considerably before she gives birth. And Donna has just asked if I have ever seen a zebra giving birth, and sadly not. The only animal I've ever seen give birth was the wildebeest on my first drive ever for Safari Live in November last year. So that's why it's a very fond memory for me, but never once have I seen any other animal give birth. I did see a chicken lay an egg the other day though, which was really incredible, on a friend's farm. But I've never seen another mammal give birth. Just going to get a hold of Craig quickly and see where he is. Not that it seems like these zebra are going anywhere, but I want to make sure that we do help him as much as possible to secure the sighting for his guests. The interesting thing with the Sabi Sands is that often guides will be frantically racing around on their guest's last drive, hoping to find them a zebra or a giraffe. Whereas in most wilderness destinations, it would be the leopard. That is the most elusive animal, and one that will 9 times out of 10 not be ticked off the list. But here it's the zebra. Craig for Scott. Craig, I'm going to probably be leaving the sighting shortly, but they are very stationary at the moment, the Mangwa, about midway down Hippo Pools Road. Okay, copy. Good. Okay, great. Well, great. Well, Craig is very close by, so we can head on. Sorry, zebra, you're going to have to move ever so slightly. Very happy to hear that we have a whole classroom of people watching the show, and that's Jackie's class. And you would like to know, how much does the foal weigh? And I think that question's through from Horven, if I've got your name correct. Apologies if I don't, but you know who you are. And that foal, I would guess, would weigh probably at the moment close to 100 kilograms, and it wouldn't have weighed that much when it was born. It probably would have weighed about 30 kilograms or 20 kilograms, but that would have been born last year in November or December. And if you keep watching the show, guys, everyone in Jackie's class, over November and December, that's when you'll get to see a whole bunch of cute little animals. The impala, nyala, kudu, zebra, wildebeest will all start giving birth, just to name a few. And who knows, hopefully we might even have some leopard cubs at that stage. I know Karula, one of the female leopards, was mating quite recently, about a month ago. Now Shadow 10 days ago, and their gestation period is about 100 to 110 days, which is about 3 months, just over 3 months, which is just in time for November, December festive season celebrations. But it's usually only the herbivores that will give birth during the most plentiful rainy months. The carnivores can give birth at any stage during the year because their food is always around. Isabella, and I'm so happy to have a tiny little 4-year-old on safari with me. How awesome. And Isabella would like to know if the zebra was happy, because it was wagging its tail so much. All of the zebra were, and I don't think they were happy, Isabella. I think they were actually quite grumpy because there's so many flies here, and that's why they keep wagging their tail, to try and chase all the flies away from them. So Not really like a dog who will wag its tail when it's happy. The zebras were doing it to keep all the flies away. But I think they were happy as well. They were just relaxing. You could see how relaxed they were, all watching in different directions to make sure that no lions were sneaking up on them. And they did seem quite calm. But there's a lot of flies here, and I'm sure, Isabella, if I just stop for a few seconds, it won't take long for some flies to land on me. Although it hasn't been too bad this afternoon. They come and go. Oh, I've just seen one that landed on Jeandré's hand. Oh, they're all on Jeandré now. They've taken to the city slicker, so it's going to be difficult to see. But they all are on Jeandré to see. But they all... There's a fly, Isabella. You see, they're everywhere. I just can't see the road when I'm driving like this. So there are a few flies here. And that's why the zebra was wagging its tail. I've got some more great news, everybody. It looks like Jeandré, the other vehicle, is on the mend, and it should only be about 5 or 10 minutes until you get to jump on board with James and see what he has planned for you for the rest of the safari. I'm not too sure what to do just yet. I think I might go and snoop through the area where James last had the male leopard tracks that he was following this morning. I've just seen some tracks of the Birmingham boys, some big male lions, and they are tracks from last night. The lions headed up straight past Juma into Buffels Hook, which is a property way up if you follow this road, and the track is just down on the sand over here. It's a very large footprint. They've got big paws, the Birmingham boys. And you can see the clear 3 lobes at the back of the pad. 1, 2, 3. So they've got 3 lobes, whereas dogs will have 3 lobes on the back. Pad. And then it's 1, 2, 3. Craig on Buffels Hook this morning, so we're not too sure where the other 2 are. And who knows, they could pop out at any moment on the Sunset Safari today. So that's a good prospect to think about. And it's not uncommon for coalitions of male lions to split up, rejoin, regroup as they go about their business. They are not always together every minute of the day. And interestingly, some of them actually came into Juma here. I can see some of the footprints heading down this road. Worth a walk around this area a little bit later when you jump on James's vehicle, and I'll hopefully able to find some clues as to where exactly they are sleeping now. somewhere around the Buffalo's Hook waterhole. Maybe they went and had a drink last night and then relaxed there. The tricky thing about following these tracks now is that a lot of vehicles had searched this area this morning and now have, making it more tricky to work out how many lion exactly were here, because the vehicle tracks have erased the footprints of the lions. But the tracks do veer, it looks like, up in this direction. And James is on the radio, so that's good signs. He's probably just wanting an update as to what's going on. Hello, Mr. Henry. How can I be of assistance? Well, it's strange. He was calling me profusely and then I responded and he is playing dead. James, go ahead. Oh well, couldn't have been that urgent then, and we'll continue with business as normal. But now I hear Aubrey is trying to contact me. Go ahead, Aubrey. Affirmative, Orbs, just north of the link to the waterhole, there's a Nyari Bamba that Birmingham Ngala, they lathled it there, they didn't finish it, and the Mnisi haven't been able to finish it either. One of the guides from June has been away for a few days, and he says he's driving through the area of where the buffalo carcass is, and he's like, something stinks here, but I don't know what's going on, can you help me? So we just let him know that it was the kill that the Birmingham boys lathled, which is probably not the perfect term, and lathla means to throw away in Zulu, not actually Shangaan, the local language here. There's 9 different African dialects within South Africa, so it can be a little bit confusing. And I started off with Zulu, then when I moved up, which is the area where I grew up in, on the east coast of South Africa, and that's where the Zulu tribe hails from, and then this is the Tsonga or Shangaan area, which is a Bantu language, and some of the words are the same, but all in all it's completely different. And then I spent 2 years up in East Africa until late last year, and Swahili then took preference. So I've got a jumble of all these 3 Bantu languages, and I don't know which words to use, so it's a bit of a jumble and jamble of all 3. Heidi in North Carolina is interested to understand a little bit more about the weather patterns that we experience here in South Africa. As our rainy season is in the summer months, and the winter months aren't very cold here. So how does it all work? Our winter's not cold and our summer's rainy. Well, the reason why our winters aren't cold is because we are on a fairly tropical latitude, and on top of that we are at low altitude here, whereas high altitude areas in South Africa do get bitterly cold, like Johannesburg, whereas Durban, where I live on the east coast, it's low altitude, coastal, tropical climate. The winters are absolutely beautiful and the summers are very, very hot and humid, and that's when we get our summer rains. The only town or province in South Africa which does experience slightly different weather is the Cape, and specifically Cape Town and surroundings, and that's a Mediterranean climate which does have winter rainfall and summer dry season. So there's a slight twist there on the southernmost tip of Africa. And I hope that gives you a better idea of kind of what's going on. There's even snow in certain parts of South Africa during the winter months. It's not very common, and skiing is not something I did, or I'd never actually been in snow rather until I was 21 and headed to Aspen. So there are some parts of the country that do get snow. We've got a tiny little landlocked country in the centre of South Africa called Lesotho, and that little landlocked country gets more snow than anywhere in South Africa, and it's very high altitude. A beautiful, beautiful little country, quite untouched and underdeveloped, with beautiful mountain ranges. Well, I've got great news, and that is that the vehicle has been fixed for half an hour now, and James has just finally finished doing his hair and polishing his teeth and is now ready to receive you. So over to James, and it's been great spending so much time with all of you this afternoon, and we will certainly be seeing you a little bit later.
Whoops. Hello everybody. I have not in fact been doing my hair like Scott Dyson has asserted. I don't in fact have any hair to do anymore. These days are behind me, and I feel a deep sense of shame and pain in my heart at that fact. What I have actually been doing is dirtying my hands attempting to fix Jeandré. That's also not very true. I was standing watching somebody else dirty their hands and fixing Jeandré. Anyway, Jeandré is semi-fixed. She is starting rather like an 85-year-old woman with a walking stick. But nevertheless, we've got her going slowly. I am sorry to have been late. But I've just been over to Arethusa to get an update on, apparently there's lots of chatter about the Styx lioness and the fate of that pride. The latest is as follows. There was a Styx lioness killed by the Birmingham males yesterday on Hoffman's, which is just south of us. There are 3 other Styx females who apparently have banded together. One of them is the mother of the cub. The cub is still alive. I have no further information on whether the Matimbas have done further damage south of that. There are rumors of that, but I'm not really sure about that. So that's, I'm afraid, the status of what's going on with the Styx lionesses. Now, that was yesterday to the south of us there. That is quite a long way away. The Birminghams are now far north of us on Biffle's Hook. So they really are doing the rounds. They're in the process of a major sort of territorial takeover, and you know, it's the last time this sort of action was seen was when the Mapocho were around. They killed more than 9 lionesses at one stage. So we hope that they don't go that far. But certainly it would seem that in this area it's not that unusual for lionesses to be killed by male lions taking over the area. Not very nice to be a lion. I was asked this morning if I could choose an animal to be, what would it be, so that I could further understand their behavior. I chose elephant or wild dog, definitely not lion, because I probably wouldn't last long enough to understand any of the behavior. Anyway, now, what happened this morning was that the Nkuhuma Pride seemed to have disappeared or vaporized in a block not too far from here. I'm hoping that they've reconstituted like some sort of transported material from a Star Trek Enterprise, but perhaps they haven't. We're going to go into that area and try and have a look and see if we can't find the Nkuhuma Pride. Remember, you know this now, of course, because you've been on Drive for a while. We do love to hear from you. Hashtag Safari Live if you're tweeting like a white proud scrub robin, or questions at wildearth.tv if you're emailing. I'm now going to turn to the front because my left eye has been burnt by the sun. Thank you very much, and here we go. Brian, I can see nothing out of my left eye. Please look to the left. I'm seeing only spots. So very sad news about those lions. I really don't know. We've had so many questions about it. I don't even know what to say anymore. I've said that it's unusual. I said that after the first time they did it, or the second time they did it. They've now done it 3 times. I don't know what to say anymore. Other than it did happen when the Mapoko came in here about 5 or 6 years ago. It is a magnificent afternoon though, so despite the fact that we don't know what's happening with the lions, it is a spectacularly beautiful afternoon, and so we're just going to enjoy it for that for now. Now, one of my colleagues is Brent Leo Smith, of course, and it is his birthday. And Carrie, you say you would like me to sing happy birthday in case he's watching. I can tell you without a shred of doubt in my mind that he is not watching. I think he is currently either fishing or... No, I'm not going to say what else I think he's doing. He's probably fishing right now. I tell you what, I'll sing it to him at closing. I'm not going to do it now. I wouldn't frighten all the animals away. Not that there are any animals, of course, but I don't wish to do it now. I will do it at the end, Carrie. There are some impala, Brian. It's the same For those of you who were watching this morning, Brian and I had a very pleasant drive, but there wasn't a huge amount of animal life on it, but it was extremely pleasant. And the 2 of the mammal sightings we had consisted of those 3 male impala. So, hello male impala. I hope you aren't the last we see today. Oh look, there are 4 of them, Brian. Good heavens, our luck is exponentially increasing. Good. Right. I don't think we're going to dwell too long on them. The sun is setting, and hopefully the lions are awaiting, or whatever else we might see. I must say, it really is turning into a spectacular afternoon. It's lovely to be out slightly later, I must say. That harsh white light has already started to sort of dissipate into honeyed yellows and oranges. I don't think I introduced myself. In case you are in fact a new viewer and wondering who this person is, my name is James, and on camera today we have Brian, dressed in very fine summer garb and bare feet. I'm not sure if you were with us this morning, but we did eventually find tracks of the lions, and it was just sort of towards the end of the drive. And it was quite strange that first of all, the lions hadn't moved very far from the night before, and secondly, that they hadn't come out of that block to do anything. And so we think maybe they have a kill inside the block. It is a big block, and we did do quite a lot of checking this morning, but didn't find anything. But I'm hoping that as it cools down a bit, perhaps they'll start to get moving, and perhaps they'll go and have a drink near the Gari waterhole, especially if they have got a kill there. And of course, as we talk about the strange goings on in the lives of the lions of Djuma and various other areas around here, there is the interesting conversation of what's going to happen to the young male lion that lives in the Nkuhuma Pride, and that's Junior. Now, Junior, rather disconcertingly, has been seen trying to mate with his mother. That's not abhorrent behavior for lions. Inbreeding is not such a big problem for them, and so it does happen from time to time. But it does mean that he should, in theory, be thrown out by now by his father, or his father's coalition, and that's the Matimbas. But of course, they are nowhere to be seen now. They're somewhere on Mala Mala, in a state of abject shame, probably, because they seem to have lost their territory without too much of a fight. Now, whether those 5 young males will chase him out remains to be seen, but given that they are being pretty nasty to the females here, I can hardly believe that they will tolerate the presence of an almost adult male lion. I'd actually quite like to see them together, just to see what would happen. I had a disagreement with Scott about this, and I said I thought that the last time I saw him on a video, he looked much bigger to me than perhaps the Birmingham guys. And Scott said no, he didn't think that was true at all. So it'd be quite interesting to see them together and see who is bigger. The Birmingham should be bigger, they're a bit older than him, but I thought Junior was looking quite strapping. Brian, as for this morning, if you see a lion, do tell me and I shall stop.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know I had to.
Just to remind you. And I just want to quickly stop and show you one of my favorite things in the bush. It's a little bit obscure, but maybe you'll like it, I don't know. Brian, do you mind facing the camera at the sun and through the grass? So one of my favorite things in the bush is the long thatching grass, especially at this time of year, till golden brown and orange. And when it's faced backlit by the setting sun, can we even see it there, Brian? Here we go, look at that, that's magnificent. And that grass is called Hypothelia dissoluta, which is totally uninteresting, but that is what it's called, in case you were worried. But look how beautiful it is, shining there in the late winter sun. One of my favorite things. Thanks, Brian. Okay, on that rather ethereal note, we'll press on and see if we can find some lions. Called giant yellow thatching grass in English. So what we'll do is drive around the block. If they have got a kill, there was quite a lot of vulture activity in the area today, so I suspect a vulture probably would have spotted the kill if there is one. And so we'll just drive around the block and see if we can't spot a vulture or two. And of course, just look for some tracks in case they've happened to have popped out of the block. round about where Scott had the tracks this morning, heading in there. Likely if they have killed something, it will be down closer to the drainage line. We're on a bit of a slope here, it goes down to the east. We're driving along looking for enormous cats. Just to give you an update on little Sindile, Annie in South Carolina. Sindile has now truly and officially and properly and deeply officially been renamed Madiba. And Jennifer, you were also concerned about his well-being. He is actually inner sighting as we speak, watching 3 vehicles on Arethusa. And I'm afraid there are too many people there. There are about 4 people waiting to go and see him. So there's really no point in us going there now. But that's where he is. He's absolutely fine. I think Shadow's left him again. She's probably gone off hunting. She's not with him at the moment. But he's absolutely fine. So that's good news. It's nice to have a bit of good news after the rather dire affairs of the lions. Now, the lions, with any luck, will be just off to the right of us somewhere. You know, it really doesn't matter to me, I'm afraid, if we find them or not tonight. It's just so nice to be out. It's the most wonderful evening. So if we find them, it'll be a wonderful bonus. But if we don't, it's a lovely South African expression, that. Some beautiful little covey here. Beautiful covey of Coqui franklins. Look at their lovely golden heads. That's so lovely. The ones with the golden heads are the males, so there seem to be quite a few males in this little covey. That's the female on the right of your screen, and a male on the left. They're the smallest franklins that we get here. And their name is onomatopoeic, because they say Coqui, Coqui, Coqui when they call. Right, you know what? I've got some tracks here of a vehicle going into the block. Now that may have been one of the rangers. I know one of the guys who just left today did actually go and look in the block. So I think what we'll do is just follow these tracks gently through the block and see if we don't come up with anything. That might be the way to go. Whew. Felt a little bit like Giga was not going to stop there. Nasty old girl that she's been in the last little while. And then we looked at those beautiful little Coqui franklins. And another small and magnificent bird, as Cecilia has pointed out, is a pearl-spotted owlet. And you would like to see one, Cecilia. I would also like to see one. So perhaps we will be lucky. We are heading down towards a little drainage line, and perhaps there will be a pearl-spotted owlet perched in a tree. Unusual, Cecilia. You know, the pearl-spotted owlet is actually a diurnal owl, which is very unusual for owls. We tend to think of them being exclusively as nighttime birds, and the pearl-spotted owlet is most certainly not a nighttime bird. Where do these tracks go? They go down through there. They do. There is a flattened acacia exuvialis there. Watch your head, Brian. While we have a quick look in the block here, we're going to head back across to Scott. He's driving along, exploring the wilderness, and I'll see you just now, hopefully with a bit of luck.
Welcome back, everyone, and I'm sure you've all been having an entertaining time with our friend James. But Jeandré and I stopped and took some time to stretch our legs and take a breather. And how many flies are on my face at the moment? It feels like quite a few. We took a breather, and while we were stopped and relaxing and just putting our feet up for a few minutes, we heard some impala alarm calling. It was actually really one impala alarm calling, and it was a female impala. She was looking deeper into the bush where she was in, and we drove up, got past her in the direction where she was looking, and a serval got up and took off, pew, into the bush. Now, a serval is an animal that I have never been able to show you here, but I will be able to show you one in the book right now. So let me just find it quickly. Give me a second or two while the flies help themselves to whatever it is they're looking for on my forehead. How does this alphabet work? So, thanks, Jeandré. This is the serval. I guess the best picture to look at is the bottom one. It's not the best picture of the serval, but you get an idea of what kind of a cat it is. Spotted like a cheetah, doesn't have a rosette like a leopard. And if you look over here in this little corner, it'll give you an idea of size. It's got longer legs than your average cat, but kind of the body just bigger than a domestic cat. So not too much bigger than a domestic cat in terms of body size, but it's got very long legs. And I'm not sure if Jamie and James have, but it sadly took off through thick bush at a very, very high speed. But it was interesting that the impala was alarm calling at it, because it's quite a small predator. It would certainly take down baby impala, but an adult impala wouldn't have to be concerned with the large serval. But where we were, and a little bit earlier on, now it's not nearly as windy and it's dying down, but where we were early on a bit of a crest, the wind was blowing, and in windy conditions a lot of the herbivores, because the grass and everything's moving and helping to allow the predators to blend in, and maybe that's why the impala did alert us to its presence. And as soon as the serval took off, the birds went bananas and started calling as well. Sure, the flies. That was not a good place to stop. So, the reason why I said you've joined us at a good time earlier is that we are now in the area where James had his last tracks of a male leopard, and this male leopard had moved a long distance from where I saw its tracks coming from our northern boundary, and then I know that James tracked them even further, so I'm hoping that the leopard couldn't have gone too much further away from this area. Possibly Tingana, possibly Mvula, hard to be certain. Speaking about Mvula, who's a large dominant male leopard, for those of you who have not yet seen him, an injury in his right eye. I think it was his right eye not too long ago. And Deborah in Ontario is interested to see how his eye is doing. I think it would have healed almost perfectly by now. It's been quite a long time. And I haven't heard the guides mentioning that it is still bad when they have found him. But what I can do is I can get a hold of Craig right this second for you, Deborah, and ask him for an update on that eye. Craig for Scott. Craig, two things please. One, is Mvula's eye that was had that problem a while back, has that healed? And are there just the 3 Birminghams that you found this morning? The other 2 are not known where they are. Oh, well, we've got lucky here. We've got a family of Inyala that we can sit and watch while we wait for Craig to get back to us. Interesting, that's a young male who's just disappeared last. You may have seen his horns poking out, but he's a very similar color to the females. And you may have noticed, or may still have a chance to notice, if he has a little white, no, he's disappeared, but he would have a white little chevron, 2 white stripes between his eyes. And even from a young age, you can therefore tell whether it's a male or a female you are looking at. But as the males do get older, they become that much darker chocolate brown. And there was a male that ran off to the right, I thought. So let's see if we can get you a glimpse of him. Deborah, sorry, it sounds like Craig either didn't hear me or hasn't responded to me. I'm not too sure what the issue is there, but I will keep trying to find out for you. And the Inyala male bull that I saw run off here has disappeared. Oh no, hold on, not quite, nearly disappeared. And it's not going to be the best view, but you will be able to get an idea of the dark chocolate brown coloration. There we go, completely different to the female's rusty orange color. But that's just about all you can pick up from this angle. This is my favorite time of the evening. As the sun begins to set, the temperature becomes far cooler. and the bush starts to come alive. Birds start to call, the predators start yawning wherever they're hiding, stretching, thinking about waking up. Cape turtle dove calling frantically off to our left. That was my little impersonation. And it's in these moments like this, when you stop and do nothing and just simply enjoy the tranquility, that you can quite often be alerted to some exciting action nearby, and then your very relaxed mood changes to an excited one, and you start up the car and head off as fast as you can in the direction of alarm calls or the rasp of a leopard. But that doesn't happen every time. We're not far at all from where James and Brian skillfully managed to track down the quarantine male not too long ago, albeit with the help of a troop of vervet monkeys. And we'll actually be driving through that area very shortly. No guarantees that quarantine or the troop of monkeys will be there, but an example of how the animals can really help us to find the predators out here. Well, isn't it wonderful that we didn't have to wait for Craig to confirm that Mvula and his funny eye has recovered, because Martha in Connecticut saw a photo posted of Mvula from a couple of weeks ago, and she says that his eye has healed perfectly. So thank you very, very much, Martha. And Deborah, I guess you owe Martha one for next time. And I know a lot of you interact with one another on Twitter and various other platforms. But thanks to everyone. And in this case, Martha came to the rescue with that info on Mvula. And it won't be the first time that you guys get to see examples of how resilient and tough these wild animals are, and can often pull through even the most nasty of injuries or problems caused from fighting or simply bad luck. And that's why it's also very important in those scenarios to, as a human, rather than naturally wanting to help, to stand back and let nature take its course. I've been disappointed with during this dry season is the amount of leopard sightings we've managed to find for you guys by seeing them from a long distance up in trees. Because at this time of the year, let me maybe stop and reverse here. Let the dust go flying past. But if we look off to our right, kind of in the direction of where the sun is setting, you can see the silhouetted branches of the marula trees, and that's probably 300 or 400 meters off the road, but you could still very clearly and quite easily spot a leopard from here to there. Now, a big reason why they may not spend as much time in the trees during the day, which is when we're mainly out, is because there's no leaves to protect them from the sun, so there's no shade, but they will still hoist kills into trees, and at this stage of the evening would be a good time to spot one feeding up there. In summer they'll be more prone to use the trees because it keeps them cool up there in the shade and may lie up there during the day, but very difficult to spot them because of all of the leaves. But we haven't seen nearly enough leopard in trees. We've still got a couple of months though until the dry season is over, so I'm hoping we're going to cash in our credit later on. But it's one of my favorite things, seeing that characteristic silhouette or shape of a leopard in a tree very far off the road and then scooting in to find out who it is. And it could happen now in the next few minutes, and if it does, you will see one very happy Scot. It sounds like James has taken a bit of an evening stroll in the pursuit of lions, and he would like to give you an update on how his lion tracking has gone. So we're going to send you over onto his vehicle and we'll catch up with you all a little bit later.
Welcome back to Jeandré, where the news is that the lions have not been found by me or anyone else. I walked through this whole block, didn't find anything. Now, Scott and Nikki, of course, went through the southern end of the block this morning, so I'm a bit flummoxed as to what's going on. Anyway, we're just going to keep driving around slowly. Maybe they've got up and gone off to have some water. Didn't find any tracks though either. Negative, no tracks. So I don't know. I basically walked all the way from the road where we were down towards here and stopped on the thicket line there. And didn't come up with anything. Who knows? So I think our plan now is going to be to head towards Gari Waterhole, see what we can find there. It's getting a little bit late to be wandering about on foot because the light is going to start to fade. Let's keep our eyes peeled just for in case. Quite a nice example. I'm just going to stop and have a listen here, and while we do that, Brian, will you just sort of show this bits of greenery that there are here? You can see there's very little green at all at the moment. That will start to change in the coming month as the spring arrives, but it won't be markedly changed until we get a bit of rain, and I don't think that's going to be till November. But that last bit of greenery you can see, of course, is the magic worry bush, And I've only just now started to see animals eat it. And I think that's got something to do with the fact that there truly is nothing else to eat. And I think that you'll find that a lot of animals will become slightly, not envenomated, but they'll certainly show some signs of toxicity should they continue to eat a worry bush only, because I think it's very full of chemical protection. Anyway, so still tough times ahead for some of the herbivores. Can't hear anything in the way of alarm calls from birds or squirrels. That's what you'll stop to listen for if you're tracking lions. Birds, squirrels, or an antelope that comes across the pride will alarm call quite loudly. But all is very peaceful sight at the moment. One or two other evergreens that still have leaves, of course, like the weeping boerbean, which grows on termite mounds, and some of the jackalberries, which are semi-deciduous. Yeah, excellent question. Why are we tracking lions? Angela, you want to know how would we see the tracks if they didn't walk on the road? Well, the answer, of course, Angela, is that we wouldn't. But the fact is that there are lots of roads around here. The blocks are not very big. And so the lions would have to cross a road eventually. They couldn't live within a small block without ever crossing a road. We're actually near the hyena den. Let's go and have a quick look there. And so, Angela, because of the way the road network is set up, it's not that unusual. In fact, it's quite common for the cats to cross the roads. They have to cross the roads. And it's also common for them to use the roads, because it's just easier for them to walk along a road than it is through spiky bush, where elephants, just like this, where elephants are pushed over trees and there are thorns everywhere. Lions, a bit like us, like to take the path of least resistance. There's one cat that doesn't do that, of course, and that's the cheetah. They tend to avoid the roads, which is quite interesting. And I think that's because the roads often form sort of places where territorial cats like leopards and lions will mark, and even hyenas. There seem to be a huge amount around. Have a look. Hyenas are out foraging. Not here, I'm afraid. Sorry about that. Let's make our way out. Laughing at Brian. Do you think it's me or you that's creating this dearth of mammal life? Watch out for the non-thorn. Put your heads, everybody. Turn around and watch where we're going. It's really a rather selfish spot for them to put their den. Most inconvenient. It's very picturesque though, much more picturesque than the other one. Lovely tree sitting on the termite mound. Plenty of booby traps on the way in, most of which have caught me at least once. Heads. Out. Poor old Jeandré. She's been through a lot in her life. showing signs of giving up now. Anyway, so let's go to Gari Waterhole and see what's there. I'm in Gallagher Waterhole, sorry, you can see what's going on at Gari Waterhole. You can see the Juma Dam cam. So, just a little update I've just received. Apparently, the Matimbas, 2 adult male lions, obviously now in a state of, I don't want to say shame, but they've certainly been ousted from their territory, and they're now south of us on Mala Mala. And apparently they attacked one of the lionesses of one of the Styx Pride breakaways. And I don't think they killed her, but somebody has posted a video, so perhaps have a look online. So that's not great news. I think that I'm going to guess here that those Matimbas might hang around at Mala Mala because, as far as I understand it, that particular area at the moment is dominated by the Majingalani coalition, which is, I think, down to 4 now, 4 lions. Here are some more tracks coming out of this block. We're going to have a little drive in here and see, just for in case. And so those 4 lions are occupying an enormous territory from all the way in the west of the Sabi Sands all the way to where Mala Mala is. So the Matimbas might find that there's a bit of dearth of male lion activity in the area, and so yeah, they might find themselves a bit of a home there. I don't think it'll be too long before the Birminghams push that far south though, and I think that you'll find that they attacked those 2 lionesses, or the Styx lioness, because they will be feeling very threatened. So very easy to irritate them into an attack. Excuse the noise. We're just going to do a little turn through here. Ooh, that is very nasty. Brian, look at the injury I have received. I will now remove it. On live television, I will perform surgery. Oh, see, Brian? It's got my blood on it. Disgusting. Now, we're going to get lots of questions like this, and they are all valid, and I'm afraid I just don't have the answer right now. But we're going to keep thinking about it. Ray from Las Vegas, why would they kill cubs, at least females? It seems counterintuitive. I agree. It makes more sense for them to kill the cubs. I agree. Why are they killing the lionesses? I just don't know. Except that maybe the lionesses are trying to defend cubs or trying to defend kills. And because the males are in such a state of hyped upness, their blood is right up, maybe that's what's causing the problem. Maybe they're just so hyped up by this territorial takeover that if there's any conflict over food, what might normally result in a sort of a smack and then it's over is now resulting in a full-on attack. So Ray, I think that's probably, I don't know, I'm guessing, but I really don't know what to say. I agree with you completely. It's entirely counterintuitive for the males to be killing females, especially when they're trying to sort of take over the territory.